All right, let's keep it going. So I just got off of my little Zoom webinar scenario that I've been doing every week here. It's been really awesome. I'm really enjoying getting back into the information. It's just reminding me how much I love this stuff, and I love teaching people about it. It's awesome. Tonight the topic was really about my history of how I got into doing the things that I do today, and how I got involved in the sports lab, Marinovich training stuff, and how I implemented it into the practice and the business. It was just really cool. I look forward to getting that information out to everybody here as we put it into everything. But the thing I wanted to talk about tonight was what I call the 10 out of 10 principle. And so I know a lot of the athletes that I've worked with, if they've, especially in the group training sessions, especially for the high school kids, who remember this a lot. I don't know if any of you guys are going to see this, but I always think maybe you guys are still watching and paying attention to what I have to say. So hopefully you are. But one of the things I realized early on when I was training younger athletes, especially, is that their biggest disadvantage compared to the best of the best athletes was in their inability to focus and stay focused during an exercise or during a training session, right? And when we're getting ready for a training session, basically, and I learned this when I was early in college, you got school and girlfriends and all this other stuff going on. So you walk into practice and you're not necessarily ready to get the most out of your practice. And I learned early on that was one of my big issues that I needed to address. The 5 minutes before I walked into practice, I needed to start getting my head focused on what I was doing. Didn't matter. Could have been 3, 4 hours, 6 hours earlier. The whole time up into that 5 minutes, I could have been talking nonsense. And in that 5 minutes, I had the ability to switch my mindset and get focused on practice. Usually it didn't start, especially in wrestling, until somebody snapped my head. And then the next thing you know, you're like, let's go, man, because it's time. You're being threatened and it's time to roll, right? But, when we're working with athletes, you got to think about it. If you look at all of your training sessions combined and the volume of your training sessions, you want to get the most out of those training sessions, right? And what we see is that most of the time athletes are not, basically being very efficient, and they're not getting the most out of the sessions at maybe 50% if they're lucky, especially in my experience. If you let it go, basically athletes start, losing their attention and their focus, really, really quickly. So when I'm working with groups, especially, one of the main things that I talk to them about from the beginning is, look, you know, I know that you're not all in the same shape. I know that you guys aren't all the same level of athlete. You're not going to be able to do all these exercises correctly. They're all new. They're all weird. They're all things that you've never done before. You're young. You haven't had experience with this. I'm not going to judge you or come down hard on you for not being able to do these things, right? We're going to work through those things. We're going to get better at the techniques. We're going to get better at executing on the drills and everything that we're doing, right? But what I'm not going to tolerate is you losing your focus while we're doing this. Our first goal of these training sessions is to get a 10 out of 10 through the whole way through the training session, right? If you can't focus the whole way through a training session, you're leaving so much on the table. And again, if you're going back to compete against somebody else that's getting a 10 out of 10 and you're at an 8 out of 10, they're going to, even with, if you look at the compounding effect, the exponential effect that they're going to get from being 10 or 20% more focused through every training session than you are, is you're never going to have a chance to catch up, right? So it's not all about, we were just talking about this on this webinar, with some of the guys that were on there, and I talked to another one of my guys, Joey Campania, that I've been working with since he was in like junior high, about this. It's not typically all about the fancy tricks. And I know that this sports science lab, Marinovich sports lab, Revolution in Motion stuff that I'm into seems like it's fancy and some trickery, but it's all really rooted in basic fundamental science. And ultimately what it does is that it makes you have to focus, because as soon as you lose your focus, you basically lose your technique on the exercise. And that's the whole idea behind the system, is basically bringing you into this kind of flow state and into this focused moment so you can get the most out of what you're doing, right? So same thing for every training session that you're doing, whether it's the 10-minute rule like we talked about it last night, site, or you're doing these hour-long functional training sessions or 2-hour-long practices. If you can stay at a 10 out of 10 in your ability to focus and execute on the drills, that's going to take you the farthest. So I wanted to leave that nugget out there for you, and I hope you guys are enjoying this stuff, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you.